Hi everyone. In this video, we will understand further about the Playwright config file. In the previous video, we created our own config object. Then we added like test directory, timeout for our test cases, then timeout for assertions, reporter type is HTML. Then we wrote the name of our browser that we want to use and we exported that object. Now let's drill it more further. So, okay, let's add, okay, one thing over here, right? The timeout for the test is like, this is an interview question. Timeout for test is 60 seconds and timeout for expect is 10 seconds. What if I convert this to 20 seconds and I set the timeout for this one is 40 seconds, right? So we know that this timeout is at the test level. If we see over here, right? This timeout is set for the test. This is our test, right? And same is for this one. Like this is our test, right? But inside its timeout is 20 seconds. And inside it, we have expect or assertions where I am setting the timeout as 40 seconds, right? Here for this assertion, timeout is 40 seconds. What if like within first 30 seconds, right? Okay. Test is 20 seconds, right? Then assertion is 40 seconds. And if, right, if assertion, let's say, takes more than or 30 seconds, what will happen, right? So this is an interview question. Will it wait for 40 seconds for the test to complete or will it fail? The answer is this test case will fail. Why? Because the test, which is at bigger level, at the parent level, right? Its timeout is set to 20 seconds. It will only wait for 20 seconds for all these statements to complete, right? But this one is taking more than 20, right? If time goes beyond 20, it won't wait for all the 40 seconds for this assertion to get complete, right? So it will fail here itself with the timeout error. Okay. So you need to keep in mind that the timeout for test, right, is should always be greater than the timeout for assertions, right? Else there won't be any use for the assertion timeouts. That is first thing. Okay. Now let's update the configuration file further. Okay. The next thing is fully parallel, right? So suppose we have let's take an example. Suppose I have multiple test cases in my file, right? Test 1, test 2, test 3 files are there. All of them, right? They have 2020. Suppose one file, like over here I have one file, right? Suppose it has 20 test cases, right? If we are not running the tests in parallel means I allocate only one machine to it, right? One machine for running these test cases, which we say worker over here, right? So if I set the workers just one, right? My worker is one. It means we only have one machine to execute all these 20 test cases. For example, here we only have two, right? But it like when we work in the companies, when we work at the corporate level, there are 1,000 test cases, right? Let's take the example of suppose we have 20 files, right? With 5 to 6 test cases in each, right? So total is now equal to more than 100 test cases, right? 100 plus, right? So we don't want to execute, we won't be able want to execute all of the test cases on one machine, right? So if one test case takes, let's say, 1 minute on an average, right? Then 100 test cases will take more than an hour. And what if we have like 800, 1000, 1200, 1000 to 12 like 2000, is the normal number for the corporate level test cases, right? So it may take a day, it may take forever to execute. That's why we need more than one machine to execute the test cases. And for that we set the workers as 20. Usually I have seen it 15 or 20 like people set up at the corporate level, right? So it means 20 test machines will be running all those test cases parallelly, right? If we have 20 machines, right, and 100 test cases, right? So it will be easy for 20 machines to execute all the, like suppose it there are 100 test cases and the time so it will be 20 test case per machine on an average, right? Sorry, 5 test cases per machine on an average, right? Earlier, one machine had to execute 100 test cases, but now we have 20 machines. So average is 5 test cases per machine. So if one test case is even taking 5 minutes, so the whole batch will be done within 30 minutes, right? So that's how it works. So how do we make these settings in our framework over here, right? So the very first thing is you need to tell your framework that do you want to run your test cases parallelly, right? We will set it as true. Yes, I want to run my test cases parallelly. Parallelly means I want to execute more than one test case at a time. So just setting the fully parallel is equal to true won't work. We also need workers. We need more than one machine, right? So even if we are just setting fully parallel true and we just have one worker, that won't make any sense, right? So let's set it 10 for now, right? So 10 is I think too much for the local. We will go with 4 or 5 for now. Let's set it as 5. You can set it up anything, right? And then we have headless mode, right? Right now, if when I executed my test case, you didn't see any browser opening or closing, right? That is because by default, the test cases are running on headless mode, right? So we need to set that up to false, right? So here, go to devices and set headless as false. So you will see the browser opening and closing this time on your local. So one more thing, like why people prefer to set it headless as true, because browser runs without UI. You will not see Chrome opening. Everything runs in the background mode. And if we change this headless to false, the browser opens. You can see the actions. It is useful for debugging. So headless mode is like headless when you don't see the browser opening, it is faster execution. And in the pipelines, we need not see anything, right? We just want to execute our test cases, right? And the real automation runs, which are bigger ones, right? We don't want to waste time or effort or machine memory just to open and close the browser to see the headless, like the headed execution. So headed mode, we just set that to false for debugging and for learning and for watching execution, right? That is a simple thing over here. So let's run our test cases for now. Just press Control C, right? And save the changes. And again run npx playwright test. So you will see the browser is opening and closing, right? To passed and the HTML report is here. So by the end of this video, we understood that what is fully parallel does, what workers are. Workers are the number of machines you want to see, right? If I set the worker to 1, right, over here. Now let me save it and rerun the test case. You will see one test case running at a time. So this one ran, that closed, and now second one ran, and then they closed. Right, running 2 tests, one worker, right? So the parallel one didn't work this time, right? And Playwright execution is controlled by parallel settings, right? Workers and browser mode, not the random execution. So in the next video, we will start writing real automation tests using Playwright best practices and we will understand the framework structure.